Imagine a world without choices. Imagine you can't make your own decision. That wouldn't be a world for me. That wouldn't be a world for you. UIC.
Tell them we're gonna be stronger. Together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. Gonna be stronger together. Time we all just unify. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. It is a natural right for every human being to be free. Free, so free. So the government is there to protect you and me. UIC objective is to liberate the citizens from colonial bondage, them regulation, them taxation. Rob Jamaica, we independent. Be stronger, together we can make it. Stronger.
Imagine a world without.
UIC Liberty TV. Change you can trust.
Hello, good evening, and welcome everyone to another edition of UIC Liberty TV. I am Joseph Patterson, and today we're going to be talking about fogging with two gentlemen who have been doing some serious work at trying to educate us and motivate us to get involved in defending and protecting our own health and well-being. Oftentimes we allow government to do whatever they think is best for us without paying attention to what they're doing and what our role is in ensuring that they do not do anything to us that they shouldn't. So tonight we're going to be talking about something we have taken for granted for a very long time: fogging. And how does fogging affect our health, our food supply, our livelihood, our well-being? Before I bring on stage two gentlemen who has been a key part of the struggle to end the impact of fogging in our lives, I want to share with you a little video of 3 years ago that spoke to the issue. And afterwards, during our discussion, I'll share with you an article from Singapore on the matter as well. Let me pause and just say welcome to all of you online on the various platforms, whether you are on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook or any one of the other means by which you can see us. Welcome to all of you. I see VP Powell on, Silver Cat is on as well, Juliet Chambers, For the Truth, Blue Wave. Welcome to all of you. Let me just pause now. Big up Mr. Desmond Myrie, good to see you on as well. So let's take a quick look now on this video from a couple of years ago, speaking on the topic of fogging. And then we're going to bring on Mr. Lloyd de Aguilera from the People's, what is it called again? Forgive me, I'll tell you in a bit. And we have Mr. HERU MENELIK from the PPP. Yes, the People's Anti-Corruption Movement. That's what it is. Forgive me, I'm getting old enough. Can't remember these things all the time. But Mr. Lloyd de Aguilera from the People's Anti-Corruption Movement and Mr. HERU MENELIK from the Marcus Garvey People's Political Party are both going to be here to chat with us tonight on the subject of fogging. And before they come on, though, I want you to watch this video from 3 years ago with the health minister telling us that nothing is wrong with fogging. It's quite okay. I hope we have learned by now that we should not take for granted the things that our politicians tell us. So good to see you on, Miss Jacqueline Lawrence. Hello, good to see you. No, it's not a repeat at all. This is new live, coming to you straight from St. Elizabeth. That's where I am. And I think Mr. Lloyd is somewhere in St. Andrew, maybe in the Augustown or Papine area. And Mr. HERU MENELIK, I think, is somewhere in the downtown Kingston area. So right across Jamaica, we're here connecting from different parts to talk about a very important subject: your health, and in particular, how fogging may be affecting you. You all know that I'm a beekeeper. So, the year before, I literally had to get very involved to ensure that they did not fog up my area and kill off my bees then. So this is dear and personal to me as well, but I'm not going to say much. I'm going to allow the gentlemen who are coming on to share their thoughts and their own research as well with us. So let's now take a look at this little thing here from TVJ on the subject and see what they have to share with us. Take a watch.
Is it safe or not? The debate continues about the chemicals used in fogging sprays to kill mosquitoes. At least one medical expert is raising issue about the harmful effects of malathion, which is one of the chemicals in the spray. But the Ministry of Health is insisting that it is safe. TVJ's Shamela Pullen tells us more.
For the past few months, vector control workers have been going from door to door carrying out fogging activities. This is part of a drive by the Ministry of Health to reduce the adult Aedes aegypti mosquitoes, which cause the dengue virus. But there's a concern about one of the 3 chemicals being used in the spray.
So they're using these spray techniques where they're going around spraying malathion, and malathion kills mosquitoes in many cases, but malathion actually interferes with the respiratory muscle activity of any living animal, including humans. So many people will get sick from the spraying technique, and they don't warn anybody ahead of time. They just go through and just spray communities, and well, we need to be on the lookout and be careful about that.
Medical entomologist who is in charge of the vector control program in the Ministry of Health, Shireen Huntley-Jones, is insisting that all the chemicals used, including the malathion, are tested and approved by the World Health Organization, WHO, and the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO.
The chemicals are safe. When we apply the chemical, we are putting out small particulate matter into the environment. So with any small particulate matter, it can become an irritant. It's not necessarily the active ingredient that is causing the respiratory issues, but that they are small particulate matters. So it's similar to dust particles, it's similar to the aerosols that we use in our homes.
Mrs. Jones says this is why the Ministry of Health in its public education campaign recommends that persons take the necessary precaution if they're skeptical about the chemicals used.
We do give caution and ask persons to either one, not be in the area when we are doing the fogging, but if you have to be there, cover your nose, cover your mouth with a damp cloth. In a few minutes, the chemical would have dissipated, the particles would have dissipated, and then they should be okay.
But this issue has been contributing to numerous complaints about the ineffectiveness of the fogging methods. Mrs. Jones explains that this is a challenge for the vector control team because they are not being facilitated in some areas.
At the time that we're fogging, 2 things are happening. One, sometimes persons are not home, so the homes are locked up. When the team pass through with the fogging, the windows, doors are closed, so the fog cannot get onto the inside to get to the mosquitoes. Secondly, there are persons that deliberately close their windows and doors. They do not like the smell of the chemical. They think they're going to be affected by the chemical, so they lock up their windows and doors. What does this do? This protects the mosquito.
But come January 2020, Mrs. Jones says the Ministry of Health will be taking a new approach in tackling the mosquitoes. She says the Aedes aegypti mosquito is an indoor pest and only goes outside when it wants to lay its eggs. As a result of that, it is difficult for the fogging on the outside to get on the inside to impact the mosquitoes.
So we'll be promoting householders purchasing the commercially available aerosols and to be spraying out their homes twice per week, every week, getting into those areas that we know that the Aedes aegypti is hiding, so that we are on the outside tackling and they're on the inside tackling, and we should see a greater reduction in the population with that method.
Shamela Pullen.
All right. So you saw the report on TVJ 3 years ago, to be exact. That report was given. I see we have Mr. MENELIK on with us here, not by phone. Very good. And Mr. Lloyd De Aguilar. Quickly, gentlemen, beginning with you, Mr. De Aguilar. What's happening? What is your take on this fogging issue?
Well, first of all, that person who just spoke, she's an embarrassment because she can't dismiss the claim and the experience the data that malathion does damage people, can cause cancer, does kill bees, and bees are very important for pollination. That is how we reproduce, or the natural environment reproduce itself, and so on. And so she's just making an arbitrary claim that it is safe. And not only is she saying it's safe, but she wants the Ministry of Health to come out and spray the outside. And now she's recommended that people spray inside their house. So it's a double attack on the people. And that is just not acceptable. And she dismisses the respiratory issues that people have. I have seen with my own eyes somebody who, when they come on spray, she has to run out of the community. She has to run, she has to find a taxi, and she has to get out of there, and she'll be away for several days because it affects her in a very serious kind of way. And the big issue is that they don't give any warning as to when they're coming to spray. So they just show up and they start spraying, and then you have to deal with the consequences of it. And to me, that is state violence, and the people have a right to defend themselves when anybody, whether it's a state or individual, brings violence against you. And what
Before you go there, hold on a second. You're making some very, very powerful point here, and we want to get them one at a time. So you talk about state violence and the people having the right to defend themselves against anyone, whether it's the state or not. Anybody who seeks to use violence against you, you have a right to defend yourself. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah, that is my position. And as I said before, there have been communities where people have stoned these trucks that come in there and spray them. And I heard Mr. Tufton saying the other day, please don't do that. But I believe that the people have a right, especially since Mr. Tufton is not giving any warning, and he's just sending in the trucks and they just start to spray. And as I've said, there have people who have reacted negatively to the mosquito spray.
So
So
they're
this is
di-
a
so
very
they're
serious issue.
so they're disregarding the rights of the people, even to know that they're going to be sprayed, to simply alert them to the situation and get them to be familiar with. At least, tell the people when are we going to spray your community? What is in the spray that we're going to put into your community? What are some of the potential side effects that might be involved? What can you do to protect yourself? And even have community meetings to help the people decide whether or not they can find alternate ways to address mosquitoes. For example,
Right.
an education campaign can be waged and people do certain things. Let me hear from Brother HERU Donald. Brother Menelik, what are your thoughts on the matter? We're not hearing you at all, Mr. Menelik. You want to call me on the phone? You can stay on here if you want, but you can call me. We can't hear you. Let me pause while you're doing that and just welcome all of you who are online right now. I see Miss Misha Earl, I see Alvera Samuels, I see RIMB, and I see our good friend Mr. Wade Noble. Thank you all for joining us today. We're talking about fogging, and we have two esteemed gentlemen here. One from the People's Anti-Corruption Movement, LLOYD I think he's described as the convener. We have Mr. HERU MENELIK, a former president of the Marcus Garvey People's Political Party. Welcome again, gentlemen. Let me see if I can hear from Mr. Menelik by phone because he's having some connectivity problems. I'll call him right now, see if we can get his thoughts on the matter. Just a second. Hopefully he'll answer us soon. Silver Cat says breathing fog can result in nose, throat irritation, and so on. Yes, Mr. Greetings. Welcome, my brother, HERU. We have you live here.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure.
This is a really vexed issue. And sometimes when you hear the people from the government side tell you that this spraying of malathion is safe. Now, the real thing about it, some countries have actually banned this form of spraying. Our neighbors in St. Vincent in the Caribbean have banned it. Now, my practical experience is that I'm a beekeeper and I have lost 10 hives of bees when they sprayed my place, my community, unannounced.
Wow.
And I couldn't get time to take evasive action.
How
I could
much,
have
hold
wet
on.
some blankets and cover my hives.
Exactly. Question to you.
But when they
Question to you. What is the cost of a
Yes.
hive? What is the cost of a hive today?
A hive is $34,000. One hive is $34,000. So I lost $340,000
Exactly.
when my 10 hives were destroyed.
And no compensation for you for that.
None whatsoever. None whatsoever.
So the government, by their actions, can wipe out a beekeeper in one fogging activity. They can come through and wipe out a beekeeper, a small man trying to do a thing. You will lose $340,000 overnight. When by them just simply letting you know that they're going to do it in advance and give you time to take evasive action, as you call it, to cover up your hives. Tell us how you do that. How would you protect your hive from this fogging thing?
Well, you wet blankets because the water creates a barrier. And you cover the hives with it, the mouth of the hive, so that the mist does not penetrate and go inside the hive. Because it's when the mist go in the hive that it floats inside there for a period of time and kill the bees.
Now, that's your now. If you knew you could protect your bees, but what about the bees in the wild?
Well, the bees in the wild are killed. And well, I could tell you of bees over in St. Catherine, in Riversdale district, that were also killed when the fogging took place. So it is something that they have to understand, that when they tell you of the scientific principles that it's a minute amount of malathion and it won't affect. No. Some countries in Europe have actually banned the use of malathion. So I don't know why we don't do the research, proper research, to find out that this thing is becoming obsolete. Many countries in the world are not using malathion.
Now, is there another approach we could take to controlling mosquitoes rather than doing fogging? Is there any other methodologies available to us?
Well, I can remember as a child, we had public health inspectors that would come around into your home and do inspections and make recommendations to get rid of bore your tin cans that might be in the yard or whatever. But our public health inspectors use, and we never had this problem. We never had these outbreaks of dengue fever, typhoid, or whatever mosquito-borne fevers. So it is that we have gotten rid of the public health inspectors coming around and doing the inspections of the home periodically. And then when you find that so much plastic bottles are around now and people just throw it, the rainfall and water goes into the plastic, and it's a breeding site for mosquitoes. So part of it again is the collection of garbage. We are not getting enough trucks in the communities to move the garbage on a timely basis. So we find a pile up of garbage and rain falls and there's a receptacle for your wigglers.
So instead of fixing the problem at the source, they compound the problem. They're not fixing the garbage problem. They're adding on to that health problems, which then will compound in lost productivity, increased health costs, and we know our health facilities are underfunded already, and so on. Mr. Lloyd de Aguilera, I want you to chip in on this. Based on what you have heard from Mr. HERU, MENELIK, what are your thoughts on this issue of finding alternative ways to deal with mosquito problems?
Well, as you correctly said, the issue is garbage collection, and there's a deficiency where garbage collection is concerned. We all know that. there is a deficiency. We're removing raw sewage in communities and water after the rain has fallen and so on. And if you don't do that, then the mosquito is likely to breed. So rather than focusing on spraying people with malathion, I believe that the first thing that should be done would be to move the garbage and remove the sewage, and then we can talk. But the problem is that we can't have a conversation with the Minister of Health. He doesn't have a discussion with us. And that has been going on for a very long time. During the COVID period, he was defending the manufacturers of the COVID vaccine, and he gave them immunity. And if we in turn get sick, he didn't say, well, we will take responsibility for your illness. And as we know, a lot of people died and were damaged by the COVID vaccine, which was forced upon us. And as you know very well, your organization led a protest downtown Kingston against forced vaccination. And some of us were pepper sprayed, including myself. So this is a form of state violence. There is no other word about it, but it's state violence.
And if you talk out, them lock you up.
And if you talk out, they want to abuse you. They
they mistreat you.
We also wrote a letter, an open letter to Mr. Christopherson, right? And we laid out the points that we are discussing here. But guess what? All now Mr. Tufton don't respond, right? He doesn't respond. And as you can see, the television stations may raise some critical points, but he's not going to come on one of the programs and sit down and have an intelligent discussion with anybody. And so we can conclude that he must be working with the pharmaceutical and chemical companies. I mean, it's just a logical conclusion to draw that he's there to use their products. And as we all know, the chemical companies, the pharmaceutical companies give under the table compensation to politicians all over the world, right? That is
we all know that our governments and our politicians are pretty much owned by big business. So if you're in big business, the government is working for you. If you're in small business or outside of the business community, the government does not work for you. But I want to just revisit this idea of the mosquitoes. Now, when you have communities with open sores, running through the streets, running down the sidewalk, like you see in various parts of the inner city of Kingston, and you have these mosquito problems, they have decided that the best way to deal with that is not to fix the open sores, not to fix the community and address the issues. They simply purchase some chemicals from the chemical producers and pump that into the community. Yes, it may have some impact on the mosquitoes, but it has an even greater impact on the people, affecting both their food supply and their physical health at the same time. Am I correct?
You're absolutely correct. And you know, I'll say one thing. This morning, I was on Caboose program on IRA FM. And you know what Caboose said? Me get the dengue already, and she's alive. So when they give the impression that it's a death sentence if you get dengue, it's not a death sentence. And there are natural ways of dealing with the illness of dengue, but nobody wants to talk about that. And they want to give you the impression that there is a crisis of dengue, and there isn't any crisis. I'm not saying that people don't get dengue, but it is not a death sentence, and so we have to be realistic about it.
Turning to Mr. HERU here on the line, we're talking about treatments for things. Mr. HERU, do you find that government is not in the business of us learning how to use natural homemade remedies to solve our problems and the natural herbs of Jamaica? They're only interested in pushing their pharmaceutical financial backers. Is that your observation as well? And tell us about that.
Very much so, because we have to understand that a lot of these chemicals and things was developed from, folklore that people use. The great, what's its name again? From the willow tree, the bark of the willow tree. That is where we got that great, I'm trying to remember the name of it. Penicillin. Penicillin is medicine from the bark of the willow tree. So a lot of these things that they have now was developed by folk medicine, from folk medicine. When we want to get rid of mosquitoes in the community, we burn orange skin. When we peel an orange, we put the skin to dry. And when there's an epidemic, an outbreak of mosquitoes, all we do is we get the skins together and we burn the skins. And this run away the mosquitoes, it actually kill them too.
And there's nothing like cleaning up your community, cleaning up, getting rid of the old tires and bottles and cans, and having community day projects where we just clean up the place and know that we're doing it for our health. And if we have education campaigns where we just educate our people on a regular basis, and we all join in the fight against mosquitoes and keeping our environment clean and orderly, getting rid of the catchment areas that may cause that, using even fish and stuff like that in ponds and streams and all that kind of stuff to help you manage the whole thing. But if you simply focus on importing the chemicals and then spraying it on your people, you're not solving the problem. You're killing off your people.
Well, it is uncanny when that lady in 2020 from the Ministry of Health would come out and defend malathion. If you Google the word malathion and it says, is it harmful to humans? It tells you plain that it affects the nervous system, cause a variety of symptoms, including headache, nausea, dizziness, weakness, cramps, diarrhea, and the list goes on. When it is embedded in the system now, this is when it becomes cancerous, because it is a cancer-causing agent. It has been proved in many other jurisdictions that it is a cancer-causing agent. I remember when Fenton Ferguson was the Minister of Health. He was alarmed at the number of new cancer cases that was occurring. And this happened, and I put the correlation between it. It was about the time when they started this intensive spraying of the malathion in communities. The cancer rate actually went up.
I want to tell you something.
So we cannot be penny wise and pound foolish.
Well, when it comes on to politicians, they're always going to be pound foolish because they're not working for you and me. And this is the most important thing. The UIC has been trying to get this message across to all of us that our politicians do not work for us. And the moment we get that clear is the moment we can formulate solutions and fix the problem. They're not working for you. Now, let's think about this carefully. How are we ever going to fix our community problems? It is not by us hoping and praying that those who control our politicians and the politicians they control are going to ever adjust their behavior to suit us. So we have to change the system and ensure it works for us. I want to share with you an article here that I was reading not too long ago from Singapore that speaks to the whole issue of mosquitoes. I want you to listen carefully to what the writer in this article had to say. It's Singapore, but he's going to share with you his perspective as a Singaporean writing about something very familiar, because Singapore is a warm country as well, like Jamaica. So let's take a listen. Let's take a look at what this person has to say. I'm hearing a feedback, so somebody can mute their mic for the moment, please. Thank you. The article says, and I'll just make it bigger on screen so you can kind of follow along to some extent, if you can see it here on the screen. The article says, with mosquito-borne diseases such as dengue and Zika on the rise, the control of the mosquito population is more than ever the responsibility of every Singaporean resident. In this regard, I agree with the call for heftier penalties for those who fail to fulfill their part in the fight against such diseases. But I strongly disagree with the call for more intensified open air fogging of many grounds, and they tell you where to find that article. Over the years, the National Environment Agency (NEA) has gradually moved away from large-scale open area fogging, and there are many arguments that support such decisions. First, fogging is only moderately effective in the control of mosquito population. For each adult mosquito killed, many more larvae in the water remain unaffected. Reducing the number of larvae is a more effective measure, which means that oil achieves better results than fogging. Second, the pesticides used in vector control are neurotoxins and have been linked to adverse effects in humans. Many of these chemicals were originally designed to as nerve gases in chemical warfare. You see that? It was used in chemical warfare. However, much lower levels of chemicals are used in pesticides. Exposure to neurotoxins, even in low quantities, is also associated with numbness of the lips and tongue, nausea, headaches, and respiratory problems. For these reasons, many countries have banned open air fogging completely. Third, fogging is also toxic to other insects, such as butterflies and bees. The National Parks Board is planting more plants that host butterflies in an attempt to increase their population numbers, and these beautiful insects are particularly sensitive to pesticides. When bee population are greatly affected by pesticides, global food production could be affected because of lack of pollination. Pesticides are also harmful to many other animals, including those that are natural predators of mosquitoes. Most pesticides used in fogging are toxic to fish, which are very important for the eradication of mosquito larvae. Frogs, geckos, and birds, which also eat mosquitoes, could also be affected by pesticides. In fact, according to the European Union classification system, most of the chemicals used in pest control are classified as harmful (XN) and dangerous to the environment (N). Taken together, oil and the eradication of breeding grounds in personal living spaces are more effective tools in fighting against dengue and Zika than widespread fogging is. The responsibility of eliminating breeding grounds is one's own home and garden in one's own home and garden, while reporting possible breeding sites in public spaces to the relevant authorities lies with everybody. We all need to play our part to keep the disease at bay. Gentlemen, beginning with you, Mr. Lloyd, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that is
Anything?
an excellent article, and it covers all the issues, all the aspects of it. Unfortunately, we don't have that kind of a discussion in Jamaica. We're not seeing that kind of thing in the newspapers. One or two television. You produce one tonight. When we had our protest last week, Wednesday, um, I give credit to CVM because they did bring up that kind of a point. And so, but it's a very rare occurrence. And there is no, as I was saying before, the state, the ministers, they don't interact with the population. They don't have a conversation. We can discuss and come up with a solution. It just doesn't happen. HERU has pointed out some natural ways of dealing with the mosquitoes and so on. We can't have that conversation at all. The Minister of Health, I believe now that we, the people, have to hold this particular Minister of Health accountable and responsible for something like this, because this is not the first time that he's engaging in policies that go against the interests of the people. He not only did he engage in the COVID vaccination, but he also started a campaign to vaccinate preteen girls, HPV vaccine. Human papillomavirus is a sexually transmitted disease. And 99.9%, and I will stand by that, of these preteen girls are not having sex. So why do you want to jeopardize their lives and their health by giving them this HPV vaccine, which can damage them. But this is a minister that you can talk to him, you can reach out to him, and he has been accused of all kind of corruption in the past, nepotism, cronyism, and so on. And here he is coming back again to tell us that he's going to just go ahead and spray. I have seen in this picture that you showed, I didn't see it, but I have seen these foggers fogging and they don't have on a mask, right? Maybe that's why they're using one with them having on the mask on TVJ. But I've seen them. So even if the the quantity of malathion is reduced, I mean, you exposing somebody to malathion in that kind of way puts them at risk. And I would love to know what has been the effect on these people driving these trucks going around and
Well, you
being
never know.
exposed to malathion.
They will be lost in the statistics because you see, if you notice, the only time we've ever had governments being very focused on any statistics is to tell us how many people are dying because they did not take the prescribed injection that they want to give them. So they only focus on reporting things that bolster their position. But I want to bring back Mr. HERU in the conversation here, because earlier on he talked about cancer and he referred to the fact that this fogging thing can be a primal cause of cancer. But there are many other cancer producing aspects of the Jamaican population. I was watching the other day a series where a lady, a very articulate lady, she was selling at a gate, a school gate, and she was talking about the issue of us not selling these sugary drinks and stuff to the children and so on. And this lady who is of limited means and obviously limited education was able to clearly articulate, say, well, what we are going to sell? She said, if we don't make the stuff them what we can sell to the children, we're going to sell what we want to allow in the country, what we want to import, what we want to allow. And so she just presented herself so clearly. Much of the cancer, I believe, in Jamaica has to do with the fact that we have moved away from organic farming. We have moved away from farming in general. We're having a lot more importation of products into our country. We have shut down the small man operation. The lady who would have made the drops and the peanut cake and the things that we make here, the blue draws and whatever, and the toto and so on. Those things have been marginalized and pushed to the side, and we have brought in all the imported packaged stuff and so on, which are loaded with a whole lot of different kinds of chemicals. That together with fogging and other things like that, and the injections that they force on us, can be a major cause of cancer creation. What are your thoughts on that, Mr. HERU?
Very much so, I concur with that, because a lot of the synthetic drinks that we have now are carcinogenic. It has been proven. A lot of the preservatives that they put into your food is carcinogenic, and this is why when you move away from the traditional ginger beer and the different stuff that we would have as a drink, you are now creating more reasons why the people will get cancer because of these the shift from the organic stuff, the natural stuff that we used to use. But one of the things I would want to look at also, it is that there's no dialogue between the ministries. This fogging affects the agriculture and fisheries, but yet still we don't have a dialogue between the minister of health and the minister of agriculture and fisheries.
Stick a pin. I wanted, because Lloyd mentioned the same thing earlier on about, he was talking about the minister himself, the health minister. But I want to posit this to both of you. When we're talking about minister of health or minister of agriculture or minister of education, it's kind of meaningless because all of these guys are puppets on a string. They're working for the same central master, in this case, the PSOJ oligarchs and the global oligarchs, right? So the ministers don't really make decisions per se. You have one prime minister through which the thing is held together. You have a party that runs our government. That party is controlled by those who fund that party. And so the minister can't really say or do too much, because if he ever decides to truly try to be an independent minister who is going to speak to the needs of the people and address the concerns, he will quickly be removed from the ministry and removed from the perks and removed from the access to capital and the access to corruption. Am I not correct, Mr. De Aguilera?
Well, listen, if you look at the papers in the past couple of days, the Prime Minister has not, his statutory declarations have not been approved in 21 and 22 by the Integrity Commission. Okay? And then the leader of the opposition, his was approved, but there's an article in the paper saying that his real estate income went up to $50 million. Now, I know a journalist who is doing a story on Mr. Golding, and she's making the claim that one of his real estate properties was not declared at all. Not only that, he has offshore companies, and we know that offshore companies are designed to assist politicians and officials in evading taxes or avoiding taxes. Let me use the word avoid, because you can legally avoid taxes. And so the issue of corruption, the issue of working with the pharmaceutical and the chemical companies is staring us in the face. And so unless we begin to address this issue of corruption, we will not be able to address the issues of social deficiencies, health problems, educational problems, and so on and so forth, because the politicians are rooted in working for the chemical companies and the people of
the oligarchs. They work for the oligarchs. Mr. MENELIK, I want to bring you back in this conversation here. I was trying to make the point earlier that, speaking about the ministries, you were saying the ministries don't talk to each other. But they're not, the truth is, they're not there to talk to each other. They're there to carry out the mandates of their masters. And the masters of our politicians, the masters of our government, are not the people of Jamaica. The master of our governments are those who give them $300, $400, $500, $600 million every year to buy our votes and to trick us. Their masters are the colonial powers who give them billions in loans and grants every year in order to allow them to rape the nation. Is that not correct, Mr. MENELIK?
Perfectly. You've hit the nail on the head. Because you use a term which I concur with. The oligarchs. Jamaica is not a democracy.
No.
Jamaica is an oligarchy.
Yes.
Where the men with money control the politicians, and the politicians now suppress the people.
Absolutely.
So ensure the profits goes to the oligarchs.
The politicians
and I tell
are...
you, the corruption is so high that even they handing out of gifts and money at election time. It is against the laws of Jamaica. If you look in the Representation of the People's Act subsection 91, it speaks directly to bribery and to cheating. And it specifically states, before, during, and after election, you should never give anyone any promises, any contribution, anything to favor that person to vote for you. But yet still, elections after elections after elections, this is what happened, because the oligarchs bring out the $10 billion campaign checks and gives to the politicians. The politicians now give it to the voters, and the voters re-elect them. Presently, we are under a minority government with the Jamaica Labour Party only having a mandate of 22%. So we are going against the grain of our own constitution.
The 21%.
So you're perfectly right when you use that word oligarch.
Yes, 21%. And the PNP got what? I think it was 16% or 14%. What is it? 16%. So the PNP got 16% and the GLP 21%. And so together, they account for 37% of the electorate. So together, the government and opposition is 37% of the electorate. The other 63% have not exercised the franchise to put either of them in. But it doesn't really matter because the system we have here, whoever get the most of those votes casted will win. So even if Jamaicans stay home and say, "Me nah vote," it's the same outcome. And if they vote for one or the other, it's the same outcome. So pretty much, we're hopeless. Because if you vote PNP, you're going to lose. If you vote, and by the way, this fogging thing never started with the GLP. The bad health policies never start with the GLP. The crime problem never starts with the GLP. The corruption never starts with the GLP, even though we might want to revise that in history, Mr. Lloyd, because the truth is, the first election ever run in Jamaica was won by the GLP in 1944. And the first election after independence ever run in Jamaica was won by the GLP as well. So in a sense, you might actually say it was started with the GLP, wouldn't we? Because they have won the first election and they set the pace. Now, if you look at Singapore, what happened? The first election that was ever run was won by the PAP party under Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. And they won that election, I think, in 1965, I think they won that election. And they have never lost an election since. They have they have lost some votes from time to time, and you have had some other parties winning a few seats and so on. But they have always won. And I tell people the reason why the PAP has always won under Lee Kuan Yew for some 30 years is because the people could tell without a shadow of a doubt that Lee Kuan Yew was committed to some fundamental things. First of all, he was committed to a non-corrupt government. And he demonstrated that by ensuring that anyone, even slightly tainted by corruption in his government, were immediately and severely punished. That's number one. Number two, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew ensured that the people had a very safe environment. You can walk away from your stall, leave your store door open, and know that your products will be safe and nobody know on thief nothing. Number three, he demonstrated that he cared about the people by giving them a very clean and beautiful environment. Whether you live uptown or downtown or somewhere in between, you were given a very clean, he called it clean and green. So he made the space very clean. So their mosquito problem is much less than ours because they have good collection, garbage collection. The roads are swept, the place is kept clean. So again, anti-corrupt, safe environment, clean environment. And then Mr. Lee Kuan Yew ensured that we had a very orderly society. So people don't just do whatever. There was order in the society. And because you had order and the place is clean and the place is safe and it's not corrupt, then you find that the small man can quickly grow and build his small business into something successful. And because he made sure the economy was based on a meritocracy, whereby as much as you contribute to the society, you get a return in that regard. And another fundamental thing he did, which we have not done, he has ensured that the people of Singapore all have a decent place in which to live, which is why the UIC is so keen on returning the land to the people so we can have land reparation and make sure all Jamaicans have a place, a decent place, not just a place, because there are many people living somewhere, but it's not decent. It is dirty, it is broke down, it is filthy. You have sewage running in the streets. They can't fix the roof, they can't fix the wall, they can't fix the wind, they can't fix the door, and many people are stealing electricity still because they can't afford it. We need to have a system of governance that truly puts the people first and ensure they have an environment in which to make the best of their own abilities to learn and to earn and to grow. What you say to that, Mr. HERU?
Well, you touched the nail on the head. I tell you, listen to me. No, on Friday when we were in New Kingston having the demonstration, I walked throughout New Kingston and I found 10 homeless people living in New Kingston. One is right by the minister's office at Grenada Crescent. He has been living there for over 10 years. Go on Knoxford Boulevard, there were 5 homeless people living and they just catching the bus stop. They go out and do their little chores in the day. But this is where they get them spread out their cardboard and live at night. There's another one over in the Sagicor garden. So when you touch on that about land for the landless and proper living facilities, you have hit the nail on the head. Because I was so taken aback when I walked through New Kingston. This is our premier shopping center, premier business center. And we have homeless people living on the sidewalk, living under the bus stop, and living in abandoned buildings.
There should be no.
It is a shame.
There really shouldn't be a need for anyone in this country to be homeless. And I'll give you an idea. And I want you to comment on this, Mr. Diaguilar. Singapore has is the size of St. Thomas, which makes it about 1/15 the size of Jamaica. 1/15 the size of Jamaica. 1/15. And they have roughly close to 6 million people living in that country. And they have a 93% home ownership rate. 93%. So the vast majority of Singaporeans live in a decent apartment, a good sized bedroom, living room, dining area, kitchen, bedroom, with well painted, with light, just decent. If you were to compare that to where many Jamaicans live here, it's like a palace compared to how many people are living in this country. They were able to do that. A small country which lacks 90% of the resources that we have. What they did, Mr. Lloyd, was to invest first and foremost in building human capital. They made sure that the children of Singapore receives a high quality education, which prepares them to hold the government accountable, prepares them to be highly productive, prepares them to be intelligent enough that they can work with government to ensure they have decent housing, high quality job, and a beautiful environment in which to live. And they did that with 1/15 the size of our country and less than 90% of our natural resources. And we have 15 times their size in physical space and less than half their population. And we have not invested in our people. We have not developed our agriculture. We have not given back the land to the people that was stolen from them by the colonial masters and have been withheld from them by their politicians of the last 80, 60 years. My God, that tells me clearly that we should not trust, depend on, or expect these politicians to ever do what is right for the people of Jamaica. What are your thoughts on that? So if they can't deal with that, they won't deal with fogging. Mr. Diaguilar, your thoughts?
Well, that is absolutely right. The political ruling class has no credibility whatsoever. And I think we have made the point that they are working for, the foreign capital and so on. And they're corrupt.
The local capital.
They're corrupted, etc. I will also say that the point about homeless people is a very good point, because let's look at the reality of the situation. There are lots and lots and lots of empty rooms and buildings all over the country. Just beginning with the churches alone. Church meet on Saturday or Sunday, and we have whole heap of space inside the churches. There are some rich people, they have 3-4 rooms that they live in that is empty. The hotels all over the place. So therefore, it really shows that it is a class thing that is a problem. It is about making money, and once you own property, it's yours, regardless of how many people are poor, how many people are sleeping on the streets, etc., etc. And you are making a point about people, the 20 odd percent for the jail and 15%. The point is that there is a credibility crisis where these two political parties are concerned. Because if it's only 37% of the people who voted, then you do have a credibility problem. But if we don't make it a credibility crisis, then it looks normal. and people don't go out and vote when the time comes because I don't like the PNP, I don't like the JLP, and so on. And it could be 20% next time. But if 20%, only 20% vote, then the 80% of us must say, listen, we have a credibility crisis and we have to solve it.
Absolutely.
My organization is calling for a People's Commission of Inquiry into state corruption. And just like how we wrote Tufton and say, well, can we discuss the fogging and the mosquito spraying? We wrote a letter to the Prime Minister, the leader of the opposition, and all the MPs and senators, and to say, well, listen, we need to have a commission of inquiry into state corruption. Jamaica is regarded as one of the most corrupt countries in the world, and it's affecting our social life, etc., education, health, infrastructure. And not one of them has ever responded
Because
and said, boy, me agree with you, or but, or me don't agree with you. Not one of them has responded.
you not count,
So
you not count, you're not important. You're
exactly.
not funding their party, so they don't need to respond to you.
So how are we going to deal with this issue? We have to
We
organize
have to take
ourselves.
matters into our own hands. It's
We have to
now.
take matters
We
into
have to do.
our hands.
Let me bring back.
We have to confront. We have to confront them,
Yes.
and we cannot be afraid to confront them. We have to go out in the streets. We can't. It's not just about election.
Yes.
It's about making them know. Say, we know that the system is corrupt. The system is not working, and we have to change it. And we have to educate and organize the masses of the people to let them know what are the issues and what are the changes. So you're talking about land for the landless. We need that. We need free education. We need free health care, right? We need to end police extrajudicial killings. And
We have 3 minutes.
many
We have 3 minutes to
we have to
go, and I want to just bring back. I want to just bring back Mr. HERU MENELIK here again. HERU, fogging, cancer, corruption, among many others, landlessness, depriving us of our land that our ancestors died for, and them still hold it from we. The way forward, to me, seems to be very clear, and Mr. Lloyd here is alluding to the same thing. The way forward is for we the people, but them halfway away because they know say they make most of it poor. So every day we are also to the point where we don't even have time to get involved in political action. That's what some people think. They have no time to get involved in the political action. So they are focused on earning their daily bread every day. How am I going to make a money to buy a food today, to feed my kids and so on. And so they have impoverished the people. And I always tell people the way you keep people a slave is by one, making them fearful that they're going to lose their jobs, fearful that they're going to be victimized politically, fearful that somehow they're going to lose their lives or they're going to be hurt if they participate in the political process. So fear. Number two, they use the lack of education. You keep the slave uneducated, illiterate, innumerate, anything you can do to keep him back. Today, it is with a fake education system. You also make sure that the slave is too poor to fight back. He feels inferior. He feels defenseless. He feels hopeless. We can't do nothing. The system already have whatever. Them politicians, we're done with politics and whatever. And so all the people now pack up and walk away. And when a few of us stand up, when a few of us decide to bring the fight to them like Mr. Lloyd is talking about, everybody sit up on the side and I watch and I wait. And I say, let me see what's going to happen. Let me see what the UIC do. Let me see what the PPP do. Let me see what the NDM do. Let me wait and see. And everybody waiting and seeing. And while they're waiting and waiting and waiting and decide that they're not going to donate, they're not going to volunteer, they're not going to do nothing, then they come in and have talk shows after talk shows after talk shows. What are your thoughts on that, Mr. HERU?
Yeah, man, thank you. And I know we're summing up. Yes. I want at this time to remind people that the politics that we practice is a numbers game. I must congratulate the vision of Carlos Staley, who lives in Florida. He came to Jamaica with the Jamaica picture. And his vision was to
You know, that was the very purpose of the UIC. That's called the United Independent Congress. And that's why we registered and we invited everybody, all parties to come together and unite. But unity is a very difficult thing. But I think the time has come for us to hopefully, very soon, move on our various challenges and come together as one. And it doesn't mean everybody has to come together as one. Just those who are serious about moving the dial forward, who are serious about doing the work that is required to be done. And we can do it. Marcus Garvey has shown us how much we can crowdfund and we can organize and do it. He has shown us that, a black man with limited means and even limited education can go to a country as mighty as America and raise up the black masses, the African masses, to form a very formidable organization. We can do it too, but we have to do better and work together. Thank you both, gentlemen, for being here tonight. Let us stand up and stand fast and oppose all forms of state violence and tyranny, whether it has to do with the injection of our people, the mass injection of our people, or the mass fogging of our spaces. Let us make sure we stand together and stand firmly against any form of tyranny by governments or otherwise. Have a good evening. Thanks to all of you who have joined us online. Please continue to like, subscribe, and share UIC Liberty TV. And let us go out the next time now and support those who are protesting against these injustices against our people. Once again, thank you, Mr. Lloyd de Aguilar. Thank you very much, Mr. HERU, and have a good night.
blessings.
Okay. All right, my friends out there, thank you again for joining us. This is my first time for a long time being on. It was a pleasure. Hope to see you again soon. There are many comments. We can't get to them now. But remember, one Jamaica, stronger together. Have a very good evening and good night.
UIC Liberty TV. Change you can